people are the solutions for tomorrow. Young people are the solutions for all the worries. And young people, if you stay with them, you will be full of energetic. But the advice I give to the young people is that also the advice I give to myself, that nothing is easy. Nothing is free. If you want to be successful, you have to pay the price. Alibaba, 18 years to today's size. Yeah, we are lucky. But we work much harder than most of the people. We never sleep well and sound in the evening. I traveled last year 867 hours a year in the plane. I'm working hard. My team working very hard.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, welcome back students, especially Form 3 Jakarta Islamic School. Okay students, in this occasion, we would like to learn together about English subject, especially for Modals Advice. And before we are going to learn about this lesson, as usual, we read dua first before study. Please raise your hands and we read dua before study. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi zidni ilman warazukni fahman. Ya Allah, give me knowledge and good understanding. Amin. Okay students, as I have told you before, that today we are going to learn about Modals Advice. And before we are going to learn this lesson, I'll give you definition of Modals Advice. Modals are the words that comes before the main verbs, or we say base form. So, modals can give extra meaning such as ability, advice, necessity, or possibility. And modals of advice, that verbs, modals of advice, that is the verb to give advice, express opinions, to give warnings, or to criticize someone. Actually, we learned today about 5 modals advice. The first is should, and then ought to, and then the third is have to, the next had better, and then the last is must. Actually, from these 5 modals advice, the meaning is similar but not exactly the same. So we have to understand well when we have to use among from these 5 modals advice. Okay students, so now for the further information, we are going for the first of modals advice. That's about should. Should we can use for advice. The example like we say, you should eat healthy food. It is good for you. And then in the negative form, we can say, you shouldn't drive too fast. It's danger. So the second, should also can we use for opinion. The example like we say, you should study harder. Or we can say also, the government should raise the taxes on the rich. We can also use should for criticism. The example like we say, you shouldn't have said that because I think you did something wrong. That's why I say you shouldn't have said that. So the next example, like we say, you should have studied harder for your exam because I think you didn't study hard. That's why I say that. So, what is the conclusion when we have to use should? We use should, when we think this is the best for him. So when we think this thing is the best for him, so we can say, or we can use should. The example like we say, you should eat vegetables every day. I think it is the best for you to eat vegetables every day. So when we think this is the best thing for him, so we can use should. So now we are going to the second Modals Advice. That's about ought to. Ought to actually is similar like should, but there is difference in ought to and should. Ought to more formal than should, and then less common. We are not familiar with ought to because it's not used in modern spoken. So ought to, like we say, you should eat vegetables every day. It is good for you. We can also say, you ought to eat vegetables every day. It is good for you. Or maybe we say, the government should raise the taxes on the rich. We can say also, the government ought to raise the taxes on the rich. There is no difference between ought to and should. Only the difference, ought to, we use it for more formal and then less common. Yeah, okay students, for further information, please check it out this video.
First, you can use should to give advice. You should buy the green one. It suits you. I advise you to do this. You shouldn't go to bed so late. It's bad for you. This is my advice. You can use should to express your opinion. Everyone should see that film. It's amazing. I'm giving you my opinion about the film. The government should raise taxes on the rich. This is my opinion, what I think should happen. Obviously, advice and opinion are similar. Often, they're the same thing. So you can also use should, often in the past, to criticize someone else. You shouldn't have said that. I think he did the wrong thing. He should have studied harder for his exams. I don't think he studied hard enough. What connects all of these cases? In all these uses of should, you use should to express what you think is the best thing to do. If I say you should, I mean I think it's best if you. Now, let's look at ought to. Part 2. Should versus ought to. In meaning, ought to is exactly the same as should. If you can use should in a sentence, you can also use ought to. For example, you can say, you should buy the green one. Or, you ought to buy the green one. You can say, everyone should see that film. Or, everyone ought to see that film. There's no difference in meaning. In both cases, the two sentences with should and ought to have the same meaning. However, there are a couple of differences in how you use ought to. First, ought to is more formal, more old-fashioned, and less common in modern spoken English. That means you probably won't use ought to unless you're writing or you want to sound very formal. Secondly, ought to has a slightly different form. Obviously, you need to add to. Also, the negative form is not generally contracted. So, you can say, you shouldn't have said that. With should not, you can contract it to shouldn't. However, with ought to, you need to use the full form. You ought not to have said that. Again, with ought to, the sentence sounds very formal, and it's unlikely that you would actually say this. With should, you can make questions, like this. What time should I get there? With ought to, you can technically make questions, but they sound ridiculously formal. What time ought I to get there? This sounds really old-fashioned and unnatural, so I advise you that you don't use ought to in this way. So to review, ought to has the same meaning as should, but a different form. It's also more formal and less common.
Yeah. Okay, students. Now we are going to the next models advice that's about have to. Actually, have to in general expresses about obligation impersonal and responsibilities. It means this obligation comes outside of ourselves. So this obligation come from, like we say, our school, our office, our parents, or something else. We can say like we have to get up early in the morning. So maybe our parents ask us to get up early in the morning. So this is not from ourselves. We don't want to get up early in the morning, but our parent ask us to get up early in the morning. Or another example, like we say, you have to wear your uniform when you are studying. So when you are studying, you have to wear your uniform. So we don't want to wear our uniform, but the school order us to wear the uniform. So we can use in this condition by have to. Okay? Yeah. Okay, students. Now we are going to the next models advice that's about had better. Actually, in the meaning, there is no difference between should and had better. Whenever we say you should finish everything today, or you had better finish everything today, there is no difference. But if we use had better, so there is a consequences if we don't finish everything today. Maybe the consequences, like we say, you'd better finish everything today, or the boss will not be happy. So there is a bad consequences when we use had better. Another example, we say you should go now. You should go now. But if we use had better, you'd better go now, or you will miss your train. So there is a bad consequences when we use had better. So we don't have any choice to do that suggestion or to do that advice, because there is bad consequences if we don't do that suggestion or that advice. So students, that's about had better. Now, students, now we are going to the last models advice that's about must. Actually, must and have to, there is similar in meaning but different using. If we use must, it means this is the obligation from ourselves or for personal obligation. Like we say, I must stop smoking. It means if I don't stop smoking, there is bad consequences to me. There is a bad impact on me. So another example, like we say, I must study harder. It means maybe I got the best score in the exam. That's why I suggest or I advise to myself to study harder in order to get a good or better result for the next exam. So that's how we use must. This is because of our personal obligation to ourselves. This is our responsibility from ourselves. It's different from have to. If have to, the obligation from outside of ourselves, like from school, from office and others. Another example, we can also use must in negative form, or we can say mustn't. For negative form, this is for something is not permitted or prohibited or allowed. The example like, you mustn't pray 5 times in a day. It means we cannot, or we are not permitted to leave Salat, even that Subuh, Zuhur, Asar, Maghrib or Isya. Every Muslim must pray 5 times in a day. Another example like we say, you mustn't play video games every day. So this is some obligation from ourselves, from ourselves, the responsibility of ourselves to do the best thing of our. So students, that's all about our material today. I hope that you can really understand about Modals Advice. Should, ought to, have to, had better, and then must. Okay, maybe that's all for our lesson today. So we read Hamdalah, Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin, and raise our hand, and we read dua after study. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Okay students, thank you for watching. Don't forget to study about this lesson. Okay? And the last I say wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you.
Hi, this is Keith from BBC Learning English. Today, I'm going to tell you the differences between must and have to. Both must and have to talk about obligations. However, now we use have to when we talk about obligations others decide for us. It's a law or a rule, so it cannot be changed. For example, at BBC, we have to show our passes to enter the building. This is a rule decided by the BBC. On the other hand, we use must when we talk about obligations we decide for ourselves or others. For example, my boss might say to me, you must be more organized. Or I might say to myself, I must exercise more often.